Okay, so let's jump right in. We're talking about the John F. Kennedy assassination.
Right.
And specifically, this huge batch of documents that was just released on March 18th, 2025.
Yes. So this release from the National Archives
Right.
was a result of President Trump's directive the day before.
Right.
And it's something that a lot of people have been waiting for.
Yeah.
The President John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Collection Act of 1992 and Executive Order 14176 basically mandated that these documents would be released eventually.
Right. And this was more than just the National Archives, right?
Absolutely not. This involved collaboration with many federal agencies
I see.
to make sure everything was released properly and legally.
So in terms of like the sheer amount of data here, like
Okay.
how much stuff are we talking about that was just released?
Well, the initial release on March 18th was about 32,000 pages,
Wow.
which is about 11,123 PDF files. That was released around 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
Okay.
And then later that night at about 10:30 p.m., another 31,400 pages were released,
Wow. So
which is about 459 PDF files.
okay, so we're talking over 63,000 pages here.
That's right.
So if somebody wants to, go through all this themselves, like how do they access this stuff?
Well, the National Archives has made these records accessible online through their website.
Okay,
But if you prefer, you can go to the National Archives at College Park, Maryland,
gotcha.
and you can actually request to see the hard copies there,
I see.
or even older formats like microfilm or microfiche.
Right, right,
And they're still digitizing some of this stuff.
right.
So more material could be released online soon.
So it's not just like they pulled a bunch of random documents out of a filing cabinet.
No, not at all.
Like there's a system to like why certain documents were held back
Right.
and why they're being released now.
Exactly. So this release targets records that were protected under Sections 10 and 11 of the 1992 Act.
Okay, and what's Section 10 all about?
Section 10 covers information that was under court seal
Okay.
or protected by grand jury secrecy.
So this could be like firsthand accounts or even like, conflicting testimony or evidence that was presented to a grand jury that has never been seen before.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
These types of documents have been of great interest to people for a very long time because they could offer perspectives and details that weren't included in the official reports
Right, right.
because they were legally protected.
And what about Section 11?
So Section 11 has two main categories.
Okay.
First, it deals with tax return information,
Okay.
which is protected by Section 6103 of the Internal Revenue Code.
I see.
And these records have very strong privacy protections.
Right.
So releasing them could reveal some pretty sensitive financial details
Yeah.
about people connected to the assassination.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So the second category under Section 11 are records that were voluntarily given to the government by private citizens.
So like letters and diaries and things like that.
Exactly, things that offer more of a personal viewpoint
All right.
on the events and the people involved. And releasing these documents shows a commitment to transparency
Right.
and making as much information public as possible.
So, to really understand what these documents might tell us,
Yeah.
we have to look back at what we already know.
Yes, definitely.
And the National Archives website mentions some key investigations
Right.
and reports that have shaped, what we currently understand.
You're exactly right.
Okay.
And the National Archives highlights several important documents,
Right.
starting with the Warren Commission report.
And that was the initial investigation that concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, right?
Yes, the Warren Commission was established very soon after the assassination.
Right.
And they determined that Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone assassin and that there was no conspiracy.
Right.
But of course, a lot of people disagree with their findings.
Right. And they also mentioned the House Select Committee on Assassinations Report,
Yes, that's right.
which kind of came to a different conclusion, right?
They did the House Select Committee on Assassinations in 1979,
Right.
concluded that President Kennedy was probably assassinated as a result of a conspiracy,
Okay.
which obviously contradicts the Warren Commission's findings.
So we have these two major official investigations.
Right.
And they completely disagree about whether there was a conspiracy or not.
Exactly.
And there's a third report that the National Archives mentioned as well.
Yes, the Assassination Records Review Board report.
And what was that about?
This board was actually created by the 1992 Act
Right.
that mandated the release of these documents.
Okay.
Their job was to find and identify and make available all government records related to the assassination.
I see.
So the documents we're talking about today are a direct result of their work.
Okay.
and the continued implementation of that 1992 legislation.
There's been a really long process to get all this information out there.
It really has.
But it's important to remember the human impact of all of this.
Absolutely.
You know, and we have a couple of accounts from people who were actually in Dallas that day in 1963
Right.
that really show a personal perspective on this tragedy.
It's so important to remember how this event affected regular people.
Right.
Like Clarence Maris, he was a young black mechanic working at a Ford dealership near Dealey Plaza.
Okay.
He was just watching the motorcade go by.
Right.
And then suddenly this horrific event happened.
And he thought the first shot was just a car backfiring.
Right. It just shows how sudden and unexpected the whole thing was.
Yeah.
And then he was asked to clean the presidential limousine afterwards.
Oh, wow.
It must have been such an intense and disturbing experience.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
It's hard to even imagine what that must have been like.
Yeah.
And then there's Marco the Cuban exile.
Okay.
He was actually there protesting President Kennedy.
So he was very much against the president.
Yes, he had a traitor sign.
Wow.
And he was really angry about Kennedy's handling of the Bay of Pigs invasion. But when the shots rang out, everything changed for him.
Yeah, of course.
He was shocked and horrified.
Wow, that's incredible.
It just shows how a moment of intense political anger
Right.
can be completely overshadowed by something like this.
Right.
And he said that his protest sign suddenly became a useless symbol of a shattered dream.
Wow.
Just a really powerful image.
Yeah, those stories are incredible.
They really are.
And then we have Samantha, who was actually involved in the 2025 declassification efforts.
Yes, Samantha's work is a great example of how people are still committed to finding the truth,
Right.
even decades after the assassination.
Yeah.
I mean, going through tens of thousands of pages of documents,
Yeah.
that takes incredible dedication.
It really does.
And it shows how complex and important this case is,
Yeah.
and how people are still hoping to find more clues and answers.
It's amazing to think that someone in 2025 is poring over these documents from the 1960s.
I know, it's really incredible.
And trying to find answers to these questions that have been around for so long.
It shows that history is never really over,
Right.
and that there are always new things to learn,
Yeah, absolutely.
and maybe even new answers to uncover.
So as we wrap this up, it's clear that these JFK assassination records are huge.
They really are.
Over 63,000 pages.
There are thousands of files.
It's a massive amount of information.
Yeah, it really shows how complex this event was.
Yes. And the types of documents that were released are really important.
Right.
We have access to information that was previously under court seal,
Right.
related to grand jury proceedings, tax information,
Right.
private donations.
Right.
This could give us new insights into the people and the investigations
All right,
that followed the assassination.
And those personal accounts from Dallas,
Yes.
from people like Clarence and Marco.
They're so powerful.
Yeah, they remind us that this wasn't just some historical event.
Exactly.
It was something that really affected real people's lives.
You're absolutely right.
And then, we have Samantha working hard to review all these documents.
Yes. She's a great example of how people are still searching for answers
Yeah.
and trying to understand what really happened.
And now that we have all this new information,
Right.
it's exciting to think about what we might learn.
There could be some real breakthroughs.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, what are the most important questions
Yes.
that we still need to answer?
What are the things that we still don't know?
Right. What secrets might still be hidden in these files?
It's definitely something to think about.
It really is.
It's going to be fascinating to see what comes out of all of this.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what people discover.
Me too.
Well, that's all the time we have for today.
All right.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me.